Yes, no, it is being recorded also. Right. So let us discuss the public debt policy. Now, see, public debt policy. Here we have to understand largely the government of India's policy of borrowings. Fine. So, what is the uh, method of government borrowing? What are the sources of government borrowing? And what are the consequences of government borrowing, basically? The consequence aspect is more important for all of you. I mean, as far as your mains exam is concerned. All right. The rest is important only in the context of understanding the concept of borrowing and understanding the entire concept of the fiscal policy in that way. Let us say that what is public debt policy? See, public debt policy is all about the borrowings of the government, fine, and the government has been borrowing money from different sources right from the beginning. All right. And I told you that the idea is that, according to a very famous scholar and politician economist also, George Lloyd. So, of course, according to him, that whatever government does, it is all about through finance. So, government is finance, nothing else. So, obviously, when we say government is finance, nothing else. So, how do this finance comes? From where this finance comes? In fact, so it comes from different sources. Of course, one of the sources is also borrowing. So borrowing is also one of the method of financing the government. Fine. So that is how the rationality of borrowing is understood, is actually understood. Now the point is, why does the government borrow? Why do the government borrow or borrow money from anyone? In fact, so idea is simple that why does the government borrow? It is just like why do we borrow money? So of course, when we have to spend a huge amount of capital or huge amount of money, and if that is really indispensable and we can't actually live without that expenditure, then obviously we try to borrow money from XYZ sources. All right. For example, let's say someone is badly ill, or someone needs money for, let's say, getting some rituals done in the family. Someone needs money to construct a house. Someone needs money to buy a vehicle. So obviously, because of these reasons only, we actually go for borrowing, isn't it? So the government also borrow the money for all these particular purposes only. So see, according to an economist, Wagner. So see, Wagner actually had given a concept that the government spends money for uh, the three very important reasons. One is the developmental activities. Another one is the maintenance activities, and the third one is to maintain the law and order activities. So these three are the most essential aspects of the government expenditure. All right, and without these three, the government has no meaning, or rather has no significance. In fact, so government finds its entire rationality in doing these three exercises in any economy. Fine, in any economy of the world. That is what actually Wagner had explained already. Now, to conduct these three exercises, the government requires a or rather uninterrupted source of revenue. So they need an uninterrupted source of revenue. And this revenue, of course, it comes through the various sources. Of course, I told you about the sources in the form of taxable, non-taxable proceeds, etc. But despite that, that the collection of revenue to the government is definitely it also always gets short in terms of or in comparison to its overall expenditure. So what the government, earns, or rather what the government gets as a revenue and what the government spends, of course, there's a huge difference between that. So because of this difference only, the government needs money to borrow. So when the government expenditure is more than its income, then of course this expenditure the government does only through borrowing. So in that cell, when you have a condition of deficit for the government, when the public account of the government of India is always in deficit, so obviously in this circumstance, borrowing becomes an essential component to support the government of the day. Fine. So in this way, you need to understand that since there's a deficit with the government, obviously the government will have to fall back upon borrowing. Fine. Now you can understand when Indian government got independent in 1947, even at that particular point of time, the government of India had lent money of rupees 51 crores of rupees 51 crores to the government of Pakistan. After the partition, the government of Pakistan was formed and they also needed money, but the entire money was under the control of the government of India. So obviously, the government of India was still under the command of Lord Mountbatten, but definitely the Council of Ministers or the politicians of India at that particular point of time, they gave their consent to offer the initial capital to the government of Pakistan in the form of lending. So the government of Pakistan also borrowed money from the government of India. All right. But that money has never been returned to the government of India till today. Fine. So if you calculate that money today with the simple interest, then this money would have been now turned out to be more than, of course, 1,000 crore. So today again, Pakistan owes more than rupees 1,000 crore to the government of India because on paper the government of Pakistan had borrowed this money, which India has not been able to claim from Pakistan, and India still counts, or the government of India still counts that money as a part of their, of course, the entire public expenditure, or part of their entire calculation of public account. Fine. So the idea is the point is that of course the government of India also has been involved in the practice of borrowing. And this borrowing the government of India has done through various sources. Now you see the sources. Then I'll come to the method. Sources. Sources of borrowing. Internal and external. Internal from RBI, scheduled commercial banks, and other financial institutions. And also through the share market. External, we have the international monetary institutions like IMF, World Bank, ADB, National Development Bank, NDB, AIIB, this is Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, all right. NDB, there is National Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, IMF. So these are the institutions from where the government of India still borrows the money. All right. That is one very major source of money that government of India gets. Then second type of money is in the form of foreign aid. Foreign aid. Now this is another very important source of money for the government of India. All right. and it is in the form of ODA. That is called as Official Development Assistance. Official Development Assistance, ODA. Now, Japan is the first country to offer ODA to the government of India since 1954. So, Japan has been the biggest supporter of India, or the biggest financer of India, I would say, in the form of foreign aid. There is Official Development Assistance Program of Japan. And under the ODA program of Japan, the Japanese government has been offering the aid to the foreign countries on the ground of philanthropy only, on the ground of philanthropic efforts only. So, aiding the underdeveloped or developing economies of the world by the Japanese government under their program of ODA, where they are charging almost negligible level of interest rate. So they are in the form of aid only, but of course it comes with some amount of interest rate, and that too, there's no any compulsion on the terms of payment or repayment back to the ODA. So it comes with a very comfortable level with the receiver or with the borrower in that way. That therefore this is one of the most, you can say, preferred foreign aid for the government of India. Exactly the same way the government of India has got this foreign aid recently from Japanese government, especially for building up the bullet train project from Mumbai to Ahmedabad. So the bullet train project that is being funded by the government of Japan, that is also a type of foreign aid only for the government of India. And that's the reason precisely why the government of India, while announcing the, you can say, the highest